And now for a closer look at the conflict between the U.S. and Iran and how it's expanding across the region. We're joined today by Dr. Lee Ji-soo, visiting researcher at the Institute of Middle East Studies. Dr. Lee, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So Iran's supreme leader has been killed in a strike by the U.S. and Israel. What does this death mean for the country, and what are the diplomatic and economic motives behind the U.S. attack?
Iranian supreme leader is not just a political figure. He is seen as God's representative on earth, the highest religious authority, and the most powerful decision maker in the country. So in many ways, he embodies the very foundation of the Islamic Republic established in 1979. He's the symbolic and ideological guardian of the Islamic Revolution itself. That's why Khamenei's death is far more than the passing of a national leader. Because of his age, there had long been quiet discussions about what Iran might look like after him, but the fact that he was killed suddenly in a U.S. strike changes the equation entirely. It raises serious questions not only about succession, but about the stability and future direction of Iran's entire theocratic system. The Trump administration has argued that it detected signs of an imminent Iranian missile attack and decided to act first. Their position is that waiting to absorb the strike could have resulted in significant casualties among U.S. forces and its allies. So from Washington's perspective, this was framed as a defensive preemptive move, striking first to prevent greater damage later. At the same time, this military operation likely reflects growing frustration in Washington. Nuclear negotiations with Iran had resumed after an 8-month pause, but there was very little meaningful progress. Some analysts see this strike as a clear demonstration of President Trump's second-term doctrine of peace through strength, the idea that diplomacy is only effective when backed by credible military power. So there is also an energy dimension to consider. The Trump administration has been focused on strengthening America's leverage in global energy markets. By taking this step, Washington may gain indirect influence over Iranian oil exports in the future.
Right, so what's next for Iran's leadership? How does Iran choose its supreme leader, and who are some of the potential contenders to replace Khamenei?
Until a new supreme leader is formally selected, Iran will be governed by a 3-member leadership council. That body reportedly includes President Masoud Pezeshkian, Judiciary Chef Gholam Hossein Mohseni Ajay, and Ayatollah Ali Reza Arafi, a member of the Guardian Council. Some Western media are suggesting that one of these 3 figures could eventually be selected as the next supreme leader. Also, other names are being discussed. Ali Larizani, currently serving as a secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, is also being mentioned as a possible successor. He is reportedly someone Khamenei trusted with broad authority during times of crisis. Another frequently mentioned figure is Mustafa Khamenei, the supreme leader's second son, who is believed to enjoy backing from the elements of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Under Iran's constitution, the supreme leader is chosen by the Assembly of Experts, a body made up of 88 senior clerics. They elect the leader through a secret ballot, and the candidate must secure a majority vote of those present. The person selected has to be a cleric with strong expertise in Islamic law or Sharia, as well as demonstrated political and administrative judgment. However, it is also possible that the current theocratic framework itself could face deeper structure change. If the system weakens significantly, an alternative leadership model could emerge. Actually, President Trump appears to be factoring in that possibility, openly encouraging the Iranian public to push for political change. In that context, Reza Pahlavi, the exiled crown prince of the former Iranian monarchy, has stated that he would be willing to return to Iran and help lead the transitional government. That said, there is still no clear or unified alternative on the table. So at this point, multiple scenarios remain possible, and the direction Iran ultimately takes is far from settled.
I see, and Iran has warned it'll attack any ship trying to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. What does this tell us about Iran's next steps, and how might this affect countries around the world?
Yeah, as you said, tensions are rising around the Strait of Hormuz, through which roughly 20% of the world's oil supply passes. Any instability there immediately raises global energy concerns. The current Iranian leadership has made it clear that it does not intend to negotiate with the United States. Instead, it has responded with missile and drone attacks targeting U.S. military bases in the region, as well as American allies. In particular, Iran has been using large numbers of the Shahed 136, which is described as a suicide drone. The key point here is cost asymmetry. The Shahed 136 is relatively inexpensive to produce, but intercepting it requires sophisticated and costly air defense missiles. In that sense, Iran appears to be pursuing a strategy aimed at exhausting the air defense systems of U.S. bases and regional partners. It signals that Tehran is not prepared to back down easily, and Iran's regional proxies, including Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and pro-Iranian Shiite militias in Iraq, have also stepped up attacks against U.S. forces and allied interests. But Iran itself was significantly weakened by joint U.S.-Israeli strikes last year, and the same is true for the elements of the so-called axis of resistance. So while the rhetoric is strong and the tactics are disruptive, it remains uncertain how much sustained or strategic damage Iran and its partners can realistically inflict on the United States or Israel at this stage.
Right, and after the U.S. attack, Iran's retaliatory strikes are now affecting nearby areas, and that includes Dubai and Qatar. Could it lead to a wider war? And how do you think the security situation in the Middle East region will play out?
Yeah, as we've seen over the past few days, Iran is not only targeting Israel and U.S. military bases, but also pro-American Gulf countries such as Qatar, the UAE, Bahrain, and even Saudi Arabia. Qatar hosts the largest U.S. military base in the Gulf, and the others are close U.S. partners in the region. For Tehran to carry out large-scale strikes directly against neighboring Gulf states is highly unusual, and the damage hasn't been confined to military sites. Even civilian infrastructures, such as hotels, has also been caught up in the attacks. So at the moment, major Gulf airports, including those in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Doha, have faced significant disruptions, with flights grounded amid security concerns. The UAE reacted swiftly, announcing it would close its embassy in Iran, and GCC foreign ministers gathered for an emergency meeting, cautioning that if the attacks don't stop, military actions against Iran cannot be ruled out. So far, none of the Gulf states has carried out actual direct military retaliation against Iran, but tensions remain extremely high. So, given the pace of escalation, the situation remains fluid, and the coming days will be critical in determining whether this crisis stabilizes or widens further.
I see. I guess we'll have to see how the situation plays out. All right, Dr. Lee, thank you so much for your time and insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.